Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dirty Gaming and a new video on the channel, going through a budget variant of Tornado Shot that I've come up with. Now when I say budget, it's not something you can do on 100C. We're talking under 10 divines to get what I think is a really good T16 map clear build going. The reason I've done it is twofold. One, I just wanted a bit of a challenge to see if I can build it slightly differently. Secondly, I've had a lot of people messaging me saying even with 30 to 40 divines, they're struggling to get a build that feels good when they've got omniscience. So what I thought I'd do is just come up with a variant that doesn't use omniscience or any expensive items, and it's used for you to be able to farm all the currency you want, get used to Tornado Shot, and then farm as much currency as you need basically to get the items you need to get your build singing and dancing. So what I'm going to do in this video is go through the skill gems, the gear, the tree. We'll do a couple of map showcases, and I'll just generally talk about exactly how the build functions and why it comes together. Now, one thing I will say that's quite important is it is a 10 divine bow character, so it's not going to be the tankiest character in the world. So you might take the odd death, but I've done a few maps so far. I've done some Guardian maps, and it's felt fine. But there are things that have got a chance to kill you if you run really, really dangerous maps. But it's kind of what you expect when you're running a budget variant of a build. You have to give up something. And in this version, we're sort of giving up a little bit of everything to at least try and keep some survivability. So let's firstly look at the gear and the implicits on the gear, because these are all vitally important and they all matter. When you're looking at a budget character, every bit matters because it pushes that little bit extra out of the character. And without a few things on the build, even though it might seem trivial missing them out, you're going to definitely notice a difference and the build is not going to feel as good. So please, if you do decide to give this build a go, make sure you do everything as per I've done. I'm not saying you can't find better ways to do stuff. I'm sure you can. But I know that this works. So if you stick with it rigidly, you should have a really good time. So we'll go to the gear first. So as I said, the gear overall is about 10 divines. Some of it is crafting, but most of it is purchasing, or it's uniques, or it's just general life resistance gear. So let's go over all the gear pieces bit by bit first. So the most expensive part is going to be the bow. What I wanted to do was buy a bow with 6 link, 1 additional arrow, big cold damage, crit, and attack speed. But there was just nothing on the market for less than like 8 or 9 divines, and it doesn't cost anywhere near that much to craft a bow like what you're looking at here. So what I did was I bought a fractured base for 25C, so like a 2-socket, no-link base, 25C. Then I went to the crafting bench and I 6-socketed and 6-linked it, because just the base alone with the 6-link was about 3.5 divines, and it costs less than 2 to do it all yourself. And then all you're doing from here is spamming deafening essences of hatred to get a big cold roll, and attack speed, and an open suffix. That's it. That's all you need, and that's all I had on this gear. So all I've done is, spam essences until I've hit attack speed and open suffix, crafted crit chance, strength, and intelligence, and basically I had one open prefix, which was the 19% fizz and accuracy one, and just exalt slammed, because you might hit a big prefix and get really lucky. You're also going to be able to sell this bow probably for almost what the build's worth at the end of it if you get a little bit lucky. Even if not, you're easily going to make your money back when you do upgrade your gear. The bow is really important. You need attack speed, you need crit chance, and you need essence cold. That's really all you need, along with the additional arrow. Anything else you get is a bonus. The quiver is probably the next most expensive item because the base is a divine. Again, you're looking for fractured arrow. Every arrow makes a big difference on Tornado Shot for clear and also for single target. I bought basically the cheapest base I could get that wasn't a pierce base. You could spend a bit more money and get a decent base, but there can be 3, 4, 5 divines for a decent base. Whereas if you don't care too much about the base, it's about a divine. And then all you're doing is using deafening essences of dread to get projectile speed. Wait till you get decent prefixes and an open suffix, and then you craft frenzy and critical strike chance. This is a really important mod. Don't skimp on it. If you hit an amazing quiver and it doesn't have a suffix, I would just sell the quiver and start again if it's going to be worth a few divines. But really, you're looking for life, any kind of flat damage, LE damage with attacks, damage with bows, and then you want no suffixes. You will have your projectile speed as a suffix and your bow attacks as a suffix, so you don't want to roll additional suffixes. And then you can craft this, which is unveiled in Syndicate. And then the next expensive item is going to be your helmet, only because the base is expensive. The rest of it is cheap, but it is a very important base to any Tornado Shot build, because it massively improves the clear and improves the single target. I would not even try a Tornado Shot build without this enchant. It makes such a big difference. So we'll start with the implicits. You want mana reservation, efficiency of skills. I just rolled this with lesser because it's quite a hard mod to hit. Lesser are dirt cheap. And reduced mana cost of attacks I rolled with greater, as it is important to get this as high as you can. So I wanted to go and find a balance between cost and effectiveness. And 22% feels right, which is with the greater orbs. And then from here, I just spammed life essences until it's something decent. So you will need intelligence on one item. I ended up getting out my helmet, so that fixed that issue for me. And then it's just resistances, and then craft Fizz taken as fire if you have a prefix. I've hit spell suppression. You don't necessarily need this, as you could pick up the extra on the tree. But if you can get 11 to 12% suppression, in fact, I think you only need about 8, then it means you don't have to run the nodes at the bottom of the tree, which we'll come on to later. This Circle of Fears, 15C, you just want cold damage while affected by Herald of Ice, and Herald of Ice has increased buff effect, and then use elemental damage catalysts on it because it increases both the flat cold damage and the increased cold damage from Herald of Ice. I bought a cheap one. If you spent a bit more money and got ones with higher rolls, you definitely feel the benefit of it. The second ring. This has to be a Frostbite on hit ring. The easiest way to do it is buy a Veritania base. Make sure it suits the item level to hit that mod. I think it's 75 or 80. So just buy like an 83 level ring to be safe. And then you are going over to Harvest and you're crafting Caster on this ring, because the only things it can roll are Cast Speed and Curse. Now it looks like it's weighted because it took me about 10 tries to hit even one Curse mod. So all you're doing, it's dirt cheap. It's 75. It costs next to nothing. Is you'll put your ring in and just spam cast it until you hit a good ring with an open prefix. And then you need to craft non-challenge skills. Can't run the build without it. The amulet we're running Replica here is Truth to get Culling Strike, Crit Multi, a level 22 Hatred, and some Hatred Reservation to let us run all our skills. And then here, even though it's expensive, we're anointing Whispers of Doom because this allows us to hit that curse that we've got on hit, because we're also running a mark on hit. It makes a massive difference to DPS and is well worth doing. The boots, you're looking for life, resistances, movement speed, and cannot be chilled. You can either buy a cannot be chilled pair of boots, or you can craft the mod on your crafting bench. For your implicits, the Eater one doesn't really matter. There aren't any good ones. And then for Exile, again, I just rolled lessers until I got action speed because they're really cheap. Body armor is just Hirizaya. I've just gone with a 5-link ballista for now. A couple of reasons. 1, keeps the cost down. 2, it means my ballistas don't cost very much to actually use, so I don't need to worry about running into mana issues if I had 2 6-links. Hirizaya works great. You get big spell suppression, you get chill duration on enemies, added cold damage, and tons of evasion. I think for a sort of mid-tier or lower-tier chess piece, it works really, really well, and I don't think there's a better substitute. For your gloves, you want to buy a fractured base with high life. So these are cheap. I think this is like 15 cows for the base. Your implicits, I would recommend a Herald of Ice buff effect and cold exposure. I would maybe roll these with greater. They're only like 1C each. They're really important mods. The cold exposure and Herald of Ice buff effect combined adds a lot of damage because we're stacking cold damage. And really you're just rolling it to hit mods that you like. If you need the resistances, roll with resistance essences. If you don't, I would roll with Zeal essences, because the more and more attack speed you can get in the build, the comfier it's going to feel. For your Stygian Vise, you just want life and resistances. You can either buy one or spam resistant essences until you hit a big life roll. If you've got an open prefix, you've got 2 choices. You can craft elemental damage with attacks or armor and evasion. I think I will probably change this to LE damage with attacks and then roll some attack catalysts on it, because that's probably going to give me about 40% LE damage to attacks, which I think is going to work out a bit better. So if I actually have any currency, I'm not sure if I do, we'll try and do that. So we have enough to roll it. I'd rather get at least above 30. Got 32. And then we'll go over and we'll use some very cheap catalysts to get this up to a higher mod. So you can just use abrasive catalysts. They're cheap, or you can use turbulent, whatever you want to use. It doesn't make a massive difference, but it's extra damage, so it's taking it from 32 to 38. For your jewel, I've just gone for a really cheap LE damage jewel. They're pretty low tiers. I think they're 3 across the board, 3 and 4. What I would go for is some life, some flat damage, and then increase attack speed if you've crit recently, because attack speed does feel really good. And then for your flasks, it's diamond with crit, jade with evasion, granite with armor, and then quicksilver with attack speed. And then you want your divine bleeding life flask. I would not scrimp on rolling these. Alterations are dirt cheap. Try and roll at least T2 mods on all of these. It makes a huge difference. Then the only other gear to go through is a Lionized Jewel here. We've got a Precision Damage Watcher's Eye here. They're about 120C. And then we have a Lethal Pride with one double damage, nothing else on it. If you could get like Intimidate and double damage or 2 double damage, it would obviously be better. But I'm trying to keep the cost of the build low. Now, you don't want this strength allocated. I've done this because I had an anointment on my amulet before, which was Fury Bolts, which messed with my whole gear when I went to upgrade to Whispers of Doom. So I've had to drop a life point here to take strength, but don't do that. Very quickly, we'll go through the gem links. So your 6th link is Tornado Shot, GMP, Awakened Added Cold, which is like 15 Chaos, Crit Damage, Inspiration, and LE damage with attacks. The 5 link I've settled on, although it's not optimal, but it lowers my mana cost, is Added Cold. Again, you could put Awakened in here because it's so cheap. Ballista Totem Support, Inspiration, Tornado Shot, and Focus Ballista. If you're not having mana issues, I would swap Added Cold for GMP. In the helmet, I've got just a live tap mark on hit, Sniper's Mark with a Flame Dash. We've got a Vile Haste, Defiance Banner, and then we've got auras socketed to an Enlightened 3, which are Determination, Precision, and Herald of Ice. So we're going to have a quick look at the tree, because there's a few bits to go through, just to make sure that you understand how the build works and what you need to do. I'm really just going to go through the important nodes. Now, we don't have any leech at all on the build other than 10 life on here and 5 mana on here. But because you fire so many arrows and this is a mapping build, that's ample. I've run no leech maps with it without a problem. I've run no regen maps. You really don't need to use the points to get the nodes here. I've taken Elemental Resistance and Chaos Resistance just because with the uniques that we use and we don't want resistances on a quiver, it can be tough to hit resistance cap. So I'm just taking resistances here. And I'm also taking resistances here. If you don't need them, don't take them. You could take other mods here, or you could just free the point up and maybe take some more life or life and evasion. And then other than that, there's not really any important mods to point out other than Defiance Banner Reservation and Precision Reservation. You're likely to need both of these for the build not to feel like really tight on mana. The full POB is going to be in the video description. I just thought I would run through the gear, how to craft it, and the tree before we get going. In terms of Pantheons, you're going to have to run Cannot Be Frozen. I forgot about this, and I had a Harbinger turn up in my map with a freeze aura, and I died. And then, depending what content you run, I would recommend running Exile Culters. You're going to want Unaffected by Burning Ground, which is Aberrath. So, not only am I bringing the build out, I'm going to give you a Atlas tree to go with it that works really well and makes a ton of currency. It's not the biggest profit-making strategy around, but it is comfortable. This build can do it, and you're going to be racking up plenty of divines per hour. And it's basically focusing purely on harvest and essences. My original strategy was to do harbingers, essences, and harvest, but harbingers actually are quite tough on a build that isn't stacked and maybe doesn't have a lot of defenses because they throw out a lot of spells and attacks when the King Harby turns up. Especially in the map I choose, they can spawn in really awkward places, and I just got fed up with it in the end for the odd chance of getting like a Fracturing Shard. So instead of that, to make the build much more comfy, I've taken Shrines. So all your profit is going to come from Harvest Life Force, Essences, and then whatever you pick up from the altars. And it is a lot of profit. Life Force is very, very in demand at the moment. It's easy to get it to turn up in your maps. It will turn up in 3 or 4 out of your maps with this tree. We're taking Growing Horde, so you're going to stick 4 Rusted Scarabs in to get some extra pack size. You're going to run Fortune Favors the Brave on the map device, even more pack size and quant, so that you're going to have at least 55-60% pack size in even your worst maps. And pack size makes Harvest spit out a lot more life force because it will spawn more monsters. That's kind of it. It's a very, very fun build to play. All I would say is, it isn't squishy, but it's not tanky. You run Determination with no grace, so you have sort of 6k armor, 10k evasion, your max spell suppression. We're not ailment immune. But once you've got a few kills, get your onslaught up, you get your flask going. When you're mapping, you're tanky enough to do most mapping content, and that's what I would recommend doing on this build. It's not a bosser. Don't go farming Conqueror maps with it. You can. I just wouldn't because it's less profit. You're going to be much better off getting through maps in 1.5 to 2 minutes, doing a harvest when it shows up, and then just selling all that you get in bulk. Before we run a map, I want to talk about map mods, because when you're running a budget build, you'll find that a few map mods that maybe didn't really affect you or you didn't notice when you've got a much higher budget build, you will start to notice. So for this build in particular, less effect of your auras is really, really bad, because loads of our damage comes from auras and nearly all of our defense does. It's not a mod I would recommend running. Fizz damage and Ellie Reflect you won't be able to do because we are taking the top hat here. So even though we don't do a lot of Fizz damage, with these extra effects, you will find yourself dying to Fizz Reflect. And unless you get Awakened Ellie damage with attacks, you're going to die to Ellie Reflect. What you can do, however, is just buy a compass from trade if you end up with a lot of Reflect maps, where you don't get affected by Reflect, and run that when you run your maps. Other than that, you can pretty much run anything. Obviously, some will be more deadly than others and some will be slower. So if you get like reduced crit damage and increased Ellie resistances, it's going to feel a lot more tougher than a map that hasn't got any of that on it. So we'll just go and roll a map. So all I'm doing is Alkin and Valin. So we've got Shot Ground, which sucks because we're not ailment immune. Exiles, Magic Monsters, Fizz's Lightning, which is great for the Shot Ground, and Monsters are Hexproof, which also sucks because we have a Hex that we use. So this is probably a good example, actually, because it is a bad map. It's not a very nice map to run. So I'll just have a quick run through and show you how it performs. So I'm not going to try and avoid Shot Ground because we move so quick. We're just going to go for the altars. We're going to go straight for the boss because I want to try and get altars to be minion ones. Alright, so the boss is already down without really having to do very much. So then we're going to go back. We're going to loop around, finish the map. I'm going to ignore Syndicate. I don't need it really. So take down the Essence Monster. I can't ignore all Syndicate, obviously. Standing on Shot Ground and getting whacked by them feels really good. I'm just going to leave them there so that I don't have to do any more Syndicate stuff. I have no need for Syndicate anymore. So we've got Harbinger anyway, but because we don't have the nodes, we're not going to get King Harbies, which are much more deadly than the normal ones. We're going to do the Harvest, which we will have to be careful about standing on Shot Ground here because we will likely die if we do. And we are standing on it constantly. So you can see here, this is a Tugahama one, so it's got like a special mod, so it's going to take much more damage, but you can keep your distance because you've got Fast Shot. It's nice and easy. Probably shouldn't have taken Crush Claw, but we will. So you see, it's fairly comfy. You just keep your distance. You're going to chill everything, so everything's going to be fairly slow. And this is where your profit is going to come from, Harvest. So this isn't like a particularly lucrative harvest, but we'll have a look when we've cleared all the packs and just show what we've got at the end of it. We have a yellow one here, which are the ones you want to aim for. So when you don't have harvest in a map, you're going to be in and out of the map in about a minute 30, minute 40. When you get harvest in, it almost doubles the time of the map, but this is where most of your profit comes from. These are annoying because they just take a lot of time. Because he's chill, freeze resistant, extra life. You do get some not very nice mods on the harvest monsters. So from that we got 600 in yellow life force, and they are in chaos about 25 per chaos. So there we got well over 20 to 25 chaos and then a smattering of blue. So they're definitely worth nipping in and doing. And you're going to be selling these in bulk for divines fairly easily. Well, we'll get our shrine, which I should have done much earlier. And it can be a bit RNG where your shrine spawns, but you don't need your shrines. Why am I getting so many harbingers? A silly amount. I'll just get rid of this quickly because I can't see what I'm doing. So you also want to make sure you've got a fairly strict loot filter because you don't want to be spending 5 minutes in a map picking up stuff that's not going to sell for decent money. I would also definitely recommend doing Sanctum. It should be pretty good for Sanctum, which we will also test out in a minute. We'll go and do a floor or two. We can't do that because we didn't interrogate the last one. My cat's screaming in the background. Apologies if you can hear her. So instead of doing just a floor of Sanctum, I thought it would make sense to actually do the final floor on this character just to show how it fares, because I've got 4 divines that should be waiting for me. So it's going to be a good test to see whether this build can cut the mustard. So we'll just go and get the last Sanctum, and then we'll just do a whole run. Obviously, skip forwards if it's not something you're interested in, but some people like to see how builds perform in Sanctum. So we'll find out. Let me just proc the influence first. And we'll go. Now, do I have to take a debuff that I've never had before? No idea what binding chains on hit does, but we are about to find out. Because there's 2 divines. We need it. Especially now I've spent literally all my money. I think I got hit there. I did get hit. What the hell? That's not fair. Alright, so. Have I already got the divines? Oh yeah, 4 divine orbs on completion. I thought that was a divine one. It wasn't. It was just one I had to go to. So, we get 2 divine... Ooh, 1... Yeah, that's fine because we'll know the Sanctum by then, won't we? That would be nice to get, but we can't get there. So it looks like we're going Lost Catacombs and Undercroft. Black Smoke is absolutely fine because we'll be done by then. Because I stack like inspiration, I don't really need to worry too much about getting hit. It's just getting hit through my life that's going to be the issue because I'm obviously a lot... Should I have done something in that room? No, it's only chess. I'm a lot less tanky than my old build. So we're going to go for the Benevolent Fountain. Then there's nothing there. So we need to look at the next room because we're going to get Black Smoke after. Defeat all the guards. Get rid of that thing. Alright, next one done. We'll take that. Doesn't do anything. Because our relics just gain inspiration on certain things. So, anything good? Just chaos and bile orbs. So I guess we'll go for the chaos. So we'll go... Yeah, we'll go there, then we'll go Chaos Pact, and then we'll go to the final room. Brilliant. Merchant prices, just what you want at this stage. Why have I just suddenly got minus 40% movement speed? When do... Oh, because I clicked the fountain. I didn't mean to click the fountain. This could be bad. Oh dear. Right. Let's go here and see if we can get rid of it, because this is not going to feel good. Well, we're going to have to play very well now, aren't we? Oh, what an idiot. Can we get rid of this thing? No, we can't. Which is a shame. But, is that max resolve 1? No. We can do this. Just to see whether we're going to get more divines. We're not, but we're getting 12 stat decks. So, go for the chaos. Ah, I didn't realize. I'm an idiot. I should have checked that that was a benevolent fountain. Wow. And 14 cows at the end. Okay, on we go. So we got, debuff wise, we have deal less damage, knockback, resolve weakness, reduce movement speed, and binding chains. I don't even know what that does. It's gain a minor affliction when you use a fountain. I didn't realize I had that. Got tons of positives though. We've got monsters deal less damage. We've got we deal more damage. We've got monsters have less life. So overall, the positives outweigh the negatives, but that movement speed has made this a bit annoying. Yes. Because we're not going to be able to move out the way of her gaze thing. Yeah, this. Oh, nearly got us.
Playing with fire will get you burned.
Don't care about these. They're not going to kill us. The gargoyles might.
I have an eternity. You are only wasting your own time. You cannot escape.
No, not again. Oh, nearly. That was dodgy with that movement speed. I did not like that. We're definitely not going to go and take on the final form. But if you're not an idiot and you get that movement speed buff, it's absolutely fine for Sanctum. So we're definitely not going into there. We will go and get our divines. So that sums up the video. POB and Atlas Tree will be in the description. I hope this build helps people out that were struggling, maybe didn't have the divines to get an Omniscience version going. Hopefully this version does a nice little stopgap. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.